What do you do anyway?
I'm a writer, I guess.
Yes, don't you know?
You get 2 sheets every Saturday. You put the clean sheet in the top sheet in the bottom sheet you turn in the laundry board. Any man turns in the wrong sheet spends the night in the box. No one will sit in the bunks with dirty pants on. Any man with dirty pants on sitting on the bunk spends the night in the box. Any man don't bring back his empty pop bottle spends the night in the box. Any man loud talking spends the night in the box.
It's the Al Travis Show. And we're lucky to have Representative Natalie Zeleznikar on the program with us. We've had her on here a few times. Representative, where is 3B? Just so folks know. That's your district.
Northeastern Minnesota, up by Hermantown, Two Harbors, Proctor, and 14 townships north.
Okay. You have a big deal going on, a ride of some sort. We ask about it? What's going on?
Sure. Yeah, ATV Minnesota is doing their annual ride up in Silver Bay, just north of my district. It's actually Roger Scraba's district, 3B, but they will be hosting it. So there'll be a legislative ride tomorrow morning, all through the trail system in Silver Bay, showing legislators from both sides of the aisle, really the economic impact of ATV trails. And Minnesota's been investing a lot of money in this. And just in St. Louis County, the 3 counties up here close, Koochiching and Lake and St. Louis County had a $34 million economic impact in just 1 year from a University of Minnesota study. So it's really important when we don't have snow all year to be able to connect the restaurants, the gas stations, and have tourism go across the state the way it's intended to go. So we have been working really hard as a legislature, and this is just showcasing it, gives us a chance to get in the woods, spend time together, just in a very, the most wonderful atmosphere ever, northern Minnesota on the North Shore.
How does all this work, if I can ask? I mean, you got 200 and some reps, and that's what, how many will make that trip? You go up there for the weekend? Is it a one-day ride? I mean, it's a long drive up there from the Twin Cities to spend the afternoon. And what if you don't own a four-wheeler?
Polaris actually brings side-by-sides up there. So legislators from all over the state, Republicans and Democrats that don't have four-wheelers or ATVs can just go there. And then they coordinate to match them with a driver so they can be a passenger and ride the trails and, have the whole experience. They have the helmets, everything. So, yes, I will be riding up there the entire weekend with everybody. So that'll be great. I'll load up my four-wheeler and head up the North Shore, so it'll be fun.
And how many, you feel a lot of your compatriots will be up there with you, representatives and senators, and can others go? Is this open to the public?
Yeah, the public goes, and there'll be hundreds of people coming up there from the state. I suspect there'll probably be 20 to 30 legislators that are there from both sides of the aisle, which is wonderful, and it'll allow us to spend time together and just be in nature and visit.
And I just out of curiosity, you live up there. I'm asking because I don't know.
Yeah,
is the four-wheeler industry or the side-by-side into whatever we're calling it these days, and they're using those trails. I get it goes from bar to a restaurant. I get the riding around for the day. Are most of these folks then renting hotel rooms, or is it cabins, Vibos or Venerabos, whatever they call them, or do they have their own cabins up there? What is the usual weekend trip with your four-wheeler? You see them driving up the road. I'm like, where are you heading, buddy? I think your own cabin. Is that what I'm thinking? You're just hopping to restaurants and having dinners and going to the next place?
It's a little bit of everything. When I'm driving to the cities, when I'm going to St. Paul, and I'm usually going that way once a week, year round, you'll see people coming from everywhere in the suburbs in Minneapolis, St. Paul. So they're just storing their four-wheelers, their ATVs in garages and pull barn systems down there, and they're heading north or they're heading south. They're heading out to different trail systems across the state. And so for people that live up here, there are some that just leave from their home. When I was running facilities, I had people that drove to work in their ATV or four-wheeler. So that's how they got to work. So it's all of the things, but there are definitely people coming from out of the area are spending money in all these communities across the state. And it's having a tremendous economic impact for our communities and small businesses. And
that is this weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday?
Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
All right. Well, thank you for telling us about anything else going on in your life that I need to know before I start quizzing you.
I know. Start quizzing right away. I mean, I've got that Citizens Council thing going on the end of the month with Representative Ned Carroll from Plymouth District, and so that'll be a fun
People don't know
opportunity.
what that is. I know you brought that up one other time, but fill us in on what that is.
Citizens League of Minnesota is doing an initiative for the first time in Minnesota where they select Republican legislators and they match them with a Democrat legislator. And so the goal is to have the legislator go to the opposite legislator's district, spend time in community to understand the shared issues and to also understand what makes their district unique. What do they need? What are the issues for the people who live, work, and visit there? And so we will go to each other's communities and have roundtables with business leaders, citizens, different formats. And so that will be the end of October. It will start, Representative Carroll will come into my district, and then I will return and go to his district after that.
So kind of like second grade, here's your buddy, make
Yeah,
sure they
buddy
get to class.
system,
Yeah, buddy system.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, fair enough.
we're going back to the basics we learned in kindergarten. Let's learn how to play nice in the sandbox, right?
I don't think that's a necessarily a wrong thing. I think they ought to name it that.
No,
That'd be more funny. New
I
buddy
think so
system.
too.
I
Yeah.
love that. Oh, if you're just tuning in with Representative Natalie Zeleznikar, I would ask you, because of distance, for no other reason than distance, I got to think you did not want a special session when it came to gun control. It now looks like the governor is not going to pull that plug. Last thing I read in the paper was, hey, he's looking too iffy on it. Why would he have tried to call one? I'm going to ask you politically. He jumps on this thing after the Annunciation Church shooting. We're going to get this done. And people were pretty riled up. I get it, but he never got the ball rolling enough to actually get a special session. It looks like he's not going to call now. Does that hurt him? I mean, just politically, you get all wound up and then nothing happens?
I mean, from my perspective, it's not helpful. I mean, as a leader, I think there should be discussion before you make that type of decision with the leadership in the House and the Senate. That didn't happen. I mean, he made a press conference before there was communications with the top key leaders. So you can't single-handedly do something by yourself. He can call a special session without agreement between the House and the Senate, but that isn't going to be productive. I mean, the reality is he led a trifecta in 23 and 24, my first two sessions, and didn't do the things that he's proclaiming he wants to do now. So that was, to me, a little bit of virtue signaling, and he's running for governor. So I don't know if it was a political stunt or not. I think it's that piece to me is kind of irrelevant. It just is going to be, how are we going to use tax dollars wisely to actually get something done? Here's the makeup of the House. We have 200 Republicans, 201 Democrats. And so that's the makeup. He knows the landscape. The Speaker of the House is a Republican, and the Senate has a one-seat majority, and that hasn't changed. So the landscape is there that he knows. He's been working under it for the last year. So time is going to tell, but I travel all over the state all the time. And so, I'd be showing up. I show up all the time. So if the session's called, I'd be there. But I don't think it's probably going to turn out that way. I think we'll be going back in February.
All right. That being said, he is getting back in the race. He's announced his run. I presume between his people, the Democrats, the Republicans, the head of the Republican, people have been polling whether this works for him. He's not going to get into a race he doesn't believe he can win with all the things going on. We're going to talk more on the other side as far as just fraud and abuse, all of the stuff going on in Minnesota. Is this a smart move for him? The fact we've never had a three-time governor. Is he doing that well that he's going to be washed in for a third term?
I guess Minnesotans are going to decide. I mean, I would say it doesn't seem like a logical pathway to me. Just seeing what I can see and having ran for president, and now even the Kamala Harris is saying she didn't really want to pick him. Yeah. So it wasn't like they had a stellar outcome with him as the vice president, and now having the Democratic candidate for president say, I didn't really want to pick him. He wasn't a good choice. So to me, I think he's going to have a lot of those types of things to overcome, and his style of leadership will be. And we've got $2 billion in fraud for the state of Minnesota. We've got a deficit of millions, billions. And we had billions in a surplus. So, there's a lot of things that a leader's going to have to own. He's been the leader under this trajectory. So,
Let's talk about that on the other side of the break. Autism arrest for autism fraud. This stuff is ridiculous. You're on the Child and Family Finance, right? The committee?
Children and families, yes.
We sit here and say we're going to help kids with autism. We're going to help feed the future. We're going to do all this stuff. It all sounds fantastic, and it's all just wash money out the door. What could we have done with that money? We'll talk with Representative Natalie Zeleznikar right after this.
When the stakes are high at the Minnesota Capitol, you need more than a lobbyist. You need a partner. At Momentum Advocacy, we bring nearly 90 years of combined experience in government relations, public affairs, and strategic communications. From nonprofits to national corporations, we help organizations navigate Minnesota's political landscape with integrity, insight, and results. Whether you need legislative champions or headlines, Momentum Advocacy delivers. For more, visit momentum-advocacy.com. Momentum Advocacy, your friends at the Capitol.
Braver Angels Minnesota is part of a national movement that brings together conservatives, liberals, independents, and others to restore trust, respect, and goodwill in politics. We seek not to eliminate our differences, but rather deal with them head on, with respect and understanding. We do not try to change people's views, but how they view the other side. There will always be differences. Braver Angels Minnesota believes the best way forward is to change how we deal with those differences. Join the civil conversation at mn.braverangels.org.
As in alligator. L also in alligator. But it's not alligator. It's the Al Travis Show.
Once again, the front page of the paper. We've got Representative Natalie Zeleznikar on with us. The front page of the paper, just about the ease of which it is to become a millionaire in Minnesota. If you just want to try it this hard. A young lady was arrested. The U.S. Attorney General had to do it again. We're not finding them, but the U.S. Attorney General's got no problem. For $14 million in fraud. This was autism fraud / she was also in on the Feeding the Futures deal, as far as we know. $14 million in 3 or 4 years here. Representative, when do I have the right to be absolutely furious at the ease of stealing my money?
I think it's apparent. I mean, the reality is that we can thank the federal government for coming in to actually prosecute and take this on. I mean, and the news stations in Minneapolis, St. Paul finally started covering things. We had the fraud committee this year. Yeah. Because we were 67, we got a fraud committee. So we had it front and center for the for the news to have to cover some of this, and they chose to finally cover it. But the reality is the whistleblowers in the Department of Human Services and Minnesota government have been saying, look, we've been reporting fraud. We see some flags and it's being ignored. And so to me, that is really revealing, because leadership starts at the top. And so I don't believe anybody's an idiot. I don't believe they're not intelligent. I think they have chosen to ignore this. And the question is, why are they ignoring it? That's the real question for taxpayers. So there's no doubt there's connections between these fraudsters. And so I think I think there's going to be more shoes to fall in the coming weeks and months, because this is now $2 billion. This is not just chunk change under the couch. And there's a lot of services that we've been cutting to local communities because we're in this deficit, because of just this madhouse of spending, growing government by 40%, building empires in St. Paul, while we're cutting the schools, cutting family closures for childcare at 50% in greater Minnesota, which has been a staple. We're not seeing growth in centers that we need to even have a job, promoting jobs, doing all those things, and then caring for seniors and ambulance services. And it just goes on and on. So there's real, true need, and we're wasting money. And Minnesotans they don't want to waste their hard-earned money. These people are working where I live 2-3 jobs to pay their bills. So it's infuriating to people.
Well, and this one gets to me because there's so much crossover. There's of course, autism fraud to the Feeding Our Futures fraud. In the story, they're talking about Al has 5 kids, and I go to the first autism and say, hey, I'll give my kids 5 names, but I want $1,500 a kid. Oh, all right. And then I go to the other one that I know is doing the same thing. I said, what do you pay? And I pay $2,000. Okay, I'll go to you. And I go back to that first one. You got to give me $2,000. There's literally no honor among thieves in the whole group. And I want the parents who knew they were doing this, shopping their kid around for the best kickback, to also go to jail. Is that asking too much? I want every last one of them thrown in jail.
I think that's asking too much. And the real tragedy is there are children. I have friends who have children with severe autism who need services, valid services. And they're the ones that are they're the ones that are losing. Those families that really have legitimate PCA services with personal care attendants, they need 24-hour care. They might need 5 hours of care. Or anybody else that truly needs services. And we've had established programs that have been vetted and honorable with integrity. And that it takes away the good standing of all those great providers, because poor providers are allowed to operate.
Yeah, this went from $3.4 million a year in 2019 to $200 million in 2021. This is the ballooning that happened. And I'm going to tell you, almost all of this is going to be fraud, in which case you're 100% correct. Those that need it, when we say in Minnesota we want to help our kids with autism, but we set it up to fail. You don't even have to have like a license. My barber has more licensure to cut my hair than the people we said were in charge of kids with autism and ADHD. I can do it. I'll run a shop. And we wrote checks. No one ever got off the program, until they aged out, I presume, at 21. This was set up to say, it's free money. Let us know what you're doing. Just send me names.
Right. And these are vulnerable adults. Let's just be clear about that, too. We're talking about imploring people to care for people that are vulnerable adults, and there's no caregiving. And that's the biggest scam we're seeing in Minnesota. That's probably what infuriates me the most. It infuriated me when we had people working 16-hour, 20-hour days in the nursing homes and assisted living, and then to find out that these people that just scammed the system for the frontline worker pay, got checks, and so the actual money that the workers got was actually minuscule, and that's ridiculous. And so when these systems are showing this type of growth, any leader is going to see that. There is no excuse for it. You cannot be this inept. You can't.
No, and that's back to your motive is something, and there's a motive here beyond I can't understand. If you were Bob, the guy in charge of human services, this department, you had a $3.4 million budget to help people. Great. And 2 years later, you're asking for $200 million? You've got to have some explanation to somebody.
Bob should probably be gone. I mean, the first, and I think that's the piece of it. Leadership starts at the top. And if the commissioners are not guarding the hen house on behalf of the governor, on behalf of the state, that tells you, why are all the commissioners there? And why right before we were going to have somebody testify this last week was somebody fired for the first time? So
the day of,
I mean,
yeah.
the day of, it is really revealing that we're playing this chess game of it's becoming closer and we're getting more
Yeah.
information, and Minnesotans are learning about this, a lot of them for the first time. They're really shocked.
I was stunned again this morning. I've seen enough of it, follow along, and I was still like, you've got to be kidding. I am out of time. Representative, I love having you in the program. Have a great time on are you a four-wheeler or a side-by-side gal?
Well, I will be on a four-wheeler, old school.
Representative Natalie Zeleznikar, I'm sorry. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate you.
You have a great week, everybody.
You.
Think about it. A famous politician once said, "You're entitled to your opinion,